Now let's take a look at what's making headlines in Australia's newspapers and online this morning. First, we'll head to the Financial Review, which is reporting that the International Monetary Fund has warned that a prolonged war in the Middle East could further raise Australia's debt, which is expected to hit $1 trillion within months.
The Australian also reporting on the Iran war crisis, saying that it has prompted Anthony Albanese to move on his 2022 election policy to create a fleet of Australian-flagged merchant ships. This is part of a push to increase the nation's economic resilience.
And in The Guardian, EU officials have arrived in Budapest for high-stakes talks aimed at reshaping the bloc's strained relationship with Hungary. This is weeks before the new government takes office. And for more on that story and a few others making headlines today, we are joined by author and former diplomat Ian Kemish. Ian, always great to have you on Weekend Breakfast.
Morning, you two.
So we've got an end of an era in Hungary, the start of a new one, and potentially a bit of a reset for Hungary's position in Europe.
Yeah, a real potential reset. Unlikely to be a complete love-in between visiting EU officials and the team of Peter Magyar, the new emerging leader of Hungary. In the end, Magyar is not a liberal crusader, but there are really promising signs here that Hungary will cease to be the chronic handbrake that it's been on EU decision-making. And at a moment when Ukraine in particular really needs for the EU to operate in a unified way and in a supportive way. At stake, of course, is 17 billion euros of potential EU assistance, but also that veto that Hungary has exercised over independent and unified EU decision-making over time. I think the signs are pretty promising. Magyar's clearly, as I say, not somebody who wants to, who is focused particularly at all on foreign policy in his election, but he is different to Orban, and I think his calculation of geopolitics and where Hungary sits vis-a-vis Russia in particular is different to that of Orban.
Ian, we want to move away from Europe now, talk about Aung San Suu Kyi, of course, in Myanmar. She was jailed in 2021. This is after the coup, the military coup there, and her jail sentence has now been reduced by the new president. What do you think is behind this move?
Look, to be honest, I think this is a fairly cynical move, particularly in relation to Aung San Suu Kyi, who I've had the pleasure of meeting 2 or 3 times in the course of my own life and career. In the end, Aung San Suu Kyi is 80 years old. There's been a reduction of a 27-year sentence by 4 years or so. So nothing particularly meaningful for her. Let's not forget, though, that under this amnesty, thousands of others have been released, those with lesser sentences, including the former president, Win Myint, an important figure, an important supporter of Suu Kyi. But in the end, this feels to me like a regime that is seeking to project a sense of momentum, but which is confident that it can continue to outlast world attention. In the end, there is not enough attention on this issue, in my view, and there is a real sense of moral and strategic failure on part of the region.
Ian, this final article about Sudan's long war now entering its 4th year, and there's little indication that it's going to end anytime soon.
No, that's right. And look, Joe, if global attention was relative only to human suffering, Sudan would dominate the news. But of course, geopolitics doesn't work that way. We're now in a 4th year. We have seen, 40,000 people killed. We've seen 14 million people displaced. According to the estimates of, more than a quarter of the country's population is in urgent need of humanitarian assistance. A military stalemate there. There's been some recent welcome reconstruction, humanitarian aid talks in Berlin. So there is some attention, but it really is a case here of global attention being so drawn by important events in places like Gaza and of course Iran and Ukraine, areas where there are geopolitical triggers that invite very strong international interest. And Sudan has been just sort of sitting there, in abject misery without a lot of attention at all.
Ian Kemish, always great to have your insights on Weekend Breakfast. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you both.